So thanks everybody for supporting. Right. And now we will open the floor for our introductions. Our interpretation and instruction.
Our interpreter today or Gigi. So Gigi and Maria, go ahead and take it away for us. Gigi, Maria.
Are you there?
You can wave if there's any malfunction.
I can hear you in the English channel. Should
Okay,
we be in English?
Interpretation's not on yet.
Yes. Yes.
Going to pick
Yes.
the little
okay, so I'm
going to
do
pick
the
little girl
instructions
that
right
appears at the
here
bottom,
because
or you're
Gigi's in
going
this.
to
Oh, I'm sorry.
¿Hablas en
I'm sorry. You
español?
two are talking over each
Okay.
other
Okay,
in the
I'm
English
sorry.
I know.
channel.
Okay, so now hopefully Gigi's in the interpretation channel, or maybe not.
It's off, so you should be good now.
I'm not in the interpretation channel. This is Gigi.
Okay, Gigi, do you want to give the instructions or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Maria.
Okay, I will do it. Okay, muy buenas noches. Y esta reunión se llevará a cabo en ambos inglés y español. Se proporcionará interpretación al español para poder escuchar en español. Por favor, vayan, si están en computadora, vayan a la barra de abajo o la parte inferior de la pantalla. Una vez que se activen los canales, miren el icono del mundo donde dice interpretación, haga clic ahí, luego elija español o Spanish y para escuchar solo el idioma interpretado, haga clic en silenciar el audio original donde dice MUTE, original audio. Si está escuchando con teléfono inteligente, vaya a los 3 puntitos e igual una vez que se activen los canales de interpretación, opriman donde dice interpretación, el icono del mundito, seleccionen español y para escuchar solamente el idioma español, silenciar el audio original. For the English speakers in the room, once the interpretation channels are activated and you want to listen to the interpretation from Spanish to English, if there is a speaker that has a question in Spanish, in order to hear us interpret that question or that response, you will need to be in the English channel. So hopefully everybody will select English if you would like interpretation from Spanish to English. Muchas gracias a todos y que tengan una buena reunión. Gracias.
So I forgot to introduce myself as co-chair of the CS. I was one of the co-chairs of our CSC, and we have our other co-chair.
Hi, Ayanna Johnson, and we also have one more that's viewing from hybrid. We have Michaela. You want to go ahead and say hi, lady?
Hey everyone, sorry I can't be there in person, but happy to be joining on Zoom.
We're just happy you're here.
Yep, thanks, Michaela. Next.
So meeting objectives. CSC members will participate in reviewing the draft objectives for transportation and mobile sources and built environment and land use. CSC members will consider a vote on amending the use definition in the charter.
Welcome and agenda has already begun. Now, our CSC, next we'll have our CSC meeting number 22 recap. A review of draft objectives for transportation and mobile sources and built environment and land use and activity, which will be 80 minutes. And then we'll take a break. Then we'll come back with the introduction and vote to amend youth definition in our charter. And we'll have our then we'll speak about our second annual Community Environmental Awareness and Empowerment Block Party, and then close out with next steps. Thank you. So this, I know you like doing this one, Ayana.
So initial meeting are notes for participation. Remember, one mic, one voice. In person, raise your hand to speak. If on Zoom, use the raise hand functions under the reactions at the bottom of your screen. Have groups for, oh, I can't read, excuse me. Have respect for ourselves. Excuse me, I'm blind today.
I would have done that for you.
I'm sorry. So have grace for ourselves and one another. Take care of yourself. Stretch. Make sure you drink water. Make sure to breathe. So mutual respect, empowerment, and active listening for all participants. To allow everyone to participate, please limit your comments to a speaking time of 2 minutes. We will actively give reminders and alerts. Our passing the mic method will be used to encourage participation among wider CSC members. For any questions throughout the meeting, if in person, please raise your hand to ask the question. If on Zoom, in addition to hand raising, you may also use the Zoom chat. CBE, backman staff will be responding to your question.
Thank you, Ayana. So community building. In-person attendees are encouraged to interact with fellow participants during the dinner meet and greet, and we did do that. Virtual attendees, please type into the Zoom chat your name, your pronouns, any affiliated organization. And community building on Zoom, please use chat and the reaction emojis to inspire and encourage one another. Note, CSC members, please raise your hand if you are not able to type into the chat, and we will have you speak aloud.
Okay, so this is a timeline slide. And kind of covers the entire community emissions reduction plan development. And so here we are. I don't know if you can see that red 4, but it's 2024 quarter 4, and that kind of indicates where we are. And then in the middle of that screen, you'll see plan, and then in the smaller font, it says strategy development. So that's where we're at, is in Q4 of strategy development. And we'll be doing that for a couple of months. And so hopefully you can hear that in a nutshell. We are in the strategy development phase. Excuse me. Hey everyone. Oh, okay, sorry, this is different than how we've been doing it. Hey everyone, nice to see everyone in person and online. I'm Carly Cabral with CBE East Oakland Clean Air Project Coordinator for AB 617. And I'll give a September recap from CSC number 22. If you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so I'll give a recap of the main 2 things from September's meeting. So one of them, we had the community concern statement presentation and activity, where the Air District and CBE staff defined what community concern statements are and how they set the foundation for strategy objectives, the strategies and actions of the SERP. We also did a community concern statement breakout activity where we got a lot of feedback. So thank you for your feedback from that activity. CSC members provided their feedback on the draft community concern statements. And then lastly, we did receive 136 comments from 13 identified respondents. and 55 comments from visitor who, was not really defined for their name or initials. Thank you. And then the second biggest part of the meeting was a strategy development overview. And that's where Allison provided some examples of CERP strategy templates from Path to Clean Air and the West Oakland Community Action Plan. And Air District staff also gave an overview of strategy development process and basically went over how the content will be added to the CERP. Thank you. And we usually don't have.
Over time, can we have Alicia work through the next slide here?
Okay, my name is Alicia Parker. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm a BACMed staff member. Happy to be here tonight, and we'll let you know that during tonight's meeting, we will look at draft objectives for 2 focus areas. That's transportation and built environment. And in these next few slides, we will explain objectives and give examples and show how objectives have worked in other CERPs and other community emission reduction plans. And we want to situate this exercise within the larger planning process. So as you may recall, we have developed vision and some principles for the East Oakland CERP. We have solidified our community boundary. We have finalized our focus areas. And at our last meeting, we went over our community concern statements, and that's all based on a lot of community feedback that we've been receiving. So I want you to know that we are diligently reviewing that feedback and incorporating it into our recommendations. And then tonight, like I said, we're reviewing strategy objectives. So that's in orange on the slide. So to provide, to help guide these few slides that we'll be presenting, we have some learning goals. So by reviewing the examples from West Oakland Community Action Plan and from the Richmond Path to Clean Air, we hope to demonstrate key questions that will help us with tonight's activity. So by these next few slides, we want to be able to answer, what is a strategy objective? Why are the strategy objectives important? How will the strategy objectives be used? And what is the difference between a strategy objective and an action? Okay, so this is our first example. And this is from the West Oakland Community Action Plan. I'll talk a little bit about the slide arrangement. So the top line says land use, and that's kind of our strategy, okay? The green box is the objective, and then below that you have the action, okay? And to unpack West Oakland's strategy objective, first thing I'll say is that West Oakland was set up a little differently. The entire plan is summed up in an overarching strategy to eliminate local disparities in exposure to air pollution. And the plan further refined the strategy to specify eliminating local disparities in exposure to air pollution in 7 impact zones, okay? So the impact zones were really that organizing framework in West Oakland. And those were areas that had, concentrations of industrial uses, freeways, high traffic roadways, those types of things. So that was that big idea in West Oakland. And then in terms of the action underneath that green box, we have, so the action underneath that green box is that we want to, there's an action about a pilot project. So it's a vegetative buffer in one of the impact zones. So impact zone 1 is right on Frontage Road. I don't know if you're too familiar with West Oakland, but there's an idea for a buffer, and they're working with Caltrans to get, agreements. They're working with city tree permitting. It's a pretty intensive process, and they're going to study the, the efficacy or the way that it's reducing pollution. So what we have here is we have an action that's very specific, and it's designed to achieve that outcome of the objective, okay? So again, we have an action that's very specific and a kind of an overarching goal or objective. So that's our first example. Okay, our next West Oakland example is again in that land use focus area. And we have that same kind of goal to protect community health by eliminating air pollution exposure. So that's that objective. And then we have an action to relocate businesses away from West Oakland. We have an opportunity with the land use, or excuse me, with the general plan update phase 2 to potentially, make some of these types of changes happen. So there's real potential there now. But again, we have like a specific action that is meant to achieve the objective of the strategy. Okay, so that's so now moving on to Path to Clean Air. So that's the Richmond project. And so we have, again, in that top line says public transit, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure. So that's the strategy. In the green box is the strategy objective. And essentially, the strategy objective included a date. So it said by 2030, all community members who live or work in the planned area have access to safe, affordable, and reliable alternatives to driving. And then that action that's very specific and concrete, and it's assigned to an agency, is that we will have a zero emission bus fleet. Okay. So that's again how we're achieving the objective through a specific action. Next example, please. Okay. So our final example is from Path to Clean Air, which is the Richmond project. And so in this objective, we have that the strategy is to focus on land use regulations, conditions of approval, and protective zones to reduce cumulative impact and concentration of polluting sources within the Path to Clean Air area. Okay. And so the action to achieve that objective is community-informed amortization. And so, the Path to Clean Air is in a very early stage of implementation, but that is, that's an approach whereby you take action in a jurisdiction to close businesses that are not in alignment with the health objectives. Okay, so before we move on to the rest of this presentation, can somebody tell me what the difference is between a strategy objective and an action?
One is implementation and the other one is just talking about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Co-chair.
I know.
I got a question.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes like not enough is being said about how these strategies and actions actually relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, eliminating disparities in exposure, finding a greenway. Like, is that really like backed by data? Is that actually going to have the effective impact of eliminating the disparities?
It's one of the 108 actions. Yeah.
I mean, and similarly, like if you're saying access to safe and affordable transit and your action is zero emission buses, and the state of California is going to apparently stop producing any fossil fuel powered vehicles by 2035, and like just having zero emission buses, which obviously all of our local agencies are already doing, like what does that actually do if the objective, especially the bold-faced part of it, is access to safe, affordable, reliable alternatives? Like if there's still barriers to access, having a new fleet of buses doesn't necessarily actually get people on buses and eliminate the disparities in transportation that exist already. So it's like, I get obviously, going on this point, like obviously strategy, action are related, but like, yeah, I don't know. These are some weird examples.
I understand what he's saying. He's saying like there needs to be some in between. There's just a point A to point B, but they're not saying. They're telling us what we need to do and what the outcome is, but there's no task in between for us to understand how to get there.
Yeah. It seems like the other way, where it's like you're telling us the outcome and you're telling us a task. It doesn't necessarily achieve the outcome.
Yeah.
It might be an incremental thing. Like obviously,
In a perfect world.
zero emission buses are better than fossil fuel powered buses, but like, I don't know who else here rides AC Transit, but like there are issues there fundamentally, affordability, like actual route planning that achieves the needs of most riders. This is just one example.
Yeah. And there are other strategies in the Path to Clean Air that talk about transit affordability and transit passes. So it's the it's the compilation of search actions, but you definitely hear you. And that's why we're here, to make sure that our actions are very specific and really
an opportunity. We don't need 150 pie in the sky kind of things, like a dozen things that are actually gonna have a tangible impact. Might seem like a better example to give us.
And that's really what happened in West Oakland, is that we broke into committees to deal with those 100 and something strategies, where we got 89 or something like that we dealt with. And so this is an opportunity to kind of condense that.
Right.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you. And I have one more slide, and I just wanted to, again, just for the sake of our exercise tonight, and just for people who might not be as familiar with a SERP and what the possibilities are, I just wanted to reiterate that a strategy is a way to organize our actions, that strategies describe the big ideas, and they become the way that we group our plan actions, and that our strategy objective is that the desired future condition to align our actions with. And then that strategies describe the group of actions again, and that actions achieve the components of the strategy objectives. And we have some, some drafts for transportation and built environment that are based on the community concern statements. So that is the presentation for that kind of framing.
Is that clear for everyone online as well? I want to make sure everybody understands what we're.
Yeah, I think we need to go to the next slide. Sorry, I think we're following verbally, but yeah, thank you. And then I see a hand raised by Gabrielle. Alicia, are you still there? Go ahead, Gabrielle, because the next slide is questions.
Okay. Oh, cool. Well then, should I wait or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to speak to the point made earlier about pie in the sky objectives, but I think that I think we should actually set ambitious goals, because that's going to guide what objectives or what actions we consider like within the realm of possibility. And also it would be helpful to know what time scale this is going to be implemented on, because on a long enough time scale, even really ambitious goals are achievable. So it would help to have some clarity on what the implementation phase looks like and how long that lasts, or if it is sort of indefinite and ongoing, in which case we should really think about what we really, really want long term.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that a timeline is very important in all these objectives. There's no need of having an objective unless you want to follow through with it. That's very important. Because so many times I get sick and tired of people talking about this and that, and no action is being done. But you got to put a timeline on whatever you do. A timeline is important.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I had one more question. Okay, so we know we have a plan and we have action. How would that be included as far as the CSD? Like what pivotal part do we play?
Yeah, well, that's what we get to, develop together. In West Oakland, the CSC was instrumental in, championing the city council to advance policy, the environmental justice element.
Okay.
They wrote letters, and all of the policies from West Oakland made it into the environmental justice element. Not all of them, but many of them.
They did just writing letters?
It was more than that, because they had specific locations for where they wanted specific activities and things. So it was a process.
Okay. Because I'm thinking like if it's businesses, or if we're going after businesses and we patronize these businesses, maybe if we pull back or have the community pull back funding these businesses, that may be another action we can take.
Right.
So I just want to see what other practices we can include. This is a new time, a new era, so maybe new practices we can include.
Yeah, good.
over here, Alicia. Yeah, I was thinking that when it comes to, the implementation of it, that, or actually the development of the strategies for our CSC members, that if we were paid to participate in committees to help develop these strategies, that it would work a lot better for us to be engaged as a whole CSC and to have the actual knowledge of how this is happening, as opposed to it just popping up on the table and then we looking at it and saying, oh, well, where did these strategies come from? Through our committees, it would be grassroots community members that would be creating these strategies. And that's how it worked in West Oakland. And I really think that it would help more participation from this group of, because we have some really serious members on our group that want to be active and participate.
Absolutely.
And they want to see their work being done. And so let's think about how we can engage our committees, by our community members, by creating committees to help develop and break down which strategies we're going to deal with.
All right, thank you, Mr. Charles.
Great questions, everyone. I'm going to introduce the activity now, which we'll be reviewing draft strategy and draft strategy objectives for 2 out of 5 of our focus areas, which is transportation and mobile sources and built environment and land use. So we're going to have 2 breakout rooms in person and 2 breakout rooms virtual. There will be, a facilitator, note taker, support staff to share screen and answer questions from community members. You're able to share your feedback via the group discussion, Zoom, or using a Google document that will drop. And go to the next slide, please. Yes. Oh, sorry. Can you go back to where that was? Thank you. So yeah, please review the draft strategy objectives that we'll be giving out and discuss the following questions that we have. What would you change in the strategy objective to better address the community concern? What do you suggest adding to the community concern statements or strategy objectives? We'll have a total of 55 minutes for the activity and then reserve 10 minutes for a report back. And just so everyone knows, there's different community concerns in each focus area. So for instance, transportation and mobile sources is trucks in the community, I-580 truck ban, freeway and high volume roadway traffic and the airport. And then for built environment and land use, sorry, I forgot my notes over there. But the community concerns are sensitive receptors, close to pollution, and incompatible zoning. And then we have, does anyone have them pulled up? I'm sorry. Reducing air. Oh yes, reducing air pollution at home.
This one.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Trees in the urban forests, and we have green infrastructure and vegetative buffers. And lastly, park and green space access and maintenance. So with hearing these community concerns, think about which focus area that you would be in for this breakout activity. Yeah.
Hey, Carly, thank you. I think I saw a hand, but it went down. Marina, do you have a question for Carly?
No, quería hablar sobre el otro tema, pero está bien.
No, there was another topic I wanted to talk about, but it's fine this way. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. So in here we have transportation and mobile sources for people who are interested in that focus area. And then we have another classroom that way will lead you to built environment and land use. I think I did. So yeah. Sorry? Oh, sorry. I was still on the mic here. Yeah, also for virtual. Cool. Okay.
So for virtual
Yeah.
is for built environment and land use.
Yep, and we put the links to the Google documents for built environment, land use, and transportation in case you want to take a look. and decide which one you want to join. Does anybody have any questions online about how to get into a room? If you want to join Built Environment, you have to choose to go to that room, I believe.
Yeah, Anish just reminded me. So if you want to be in transportation and mobile sources, stay in the main room on online.
And here too.
I'm sorry, I don't see where I need to go if I want to go to the built environment virtually. Is it in the chat?
The breakout room. Breakout room is
Oh, I got it. I see it now. Okay, I see it now. Thanks.
So this time is for the built environment.
That's me. I'm going. I'm a built environment.
Thank you, Raven. Do you think we can mute the main room while we get organized here? Thank you. Okay, everyone.
And I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. I'm trying to get into the virtual for a built environment, but I can't.
Okay,
I thought
great.
I found the
I
link.
can help you with that. I'll go ahead and help you with that.
Thanks.
All right, let me know when you've gotten that. Great. Okay. Just so everyone knows, the main room, which is the room that you are currently in, is for transportation and mobile sources. So if you would like to join the built environment and land use room and you're having trouble joining, please let me know, or please leave a comment in the chat and we can automatically assign that room to you if needed. This is transportation and mobile sources. We're going to be going over this activity. Okay, great. I'll go ahead and add you, Becca. And all right, let me know once you're ready. Or once you've gotten that, right? And just so you know, we have about 48 minutes to go through this activity. All right, is there anybody else who would like to join the built environment and land use breakout room? Okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Nirvana. I'm going to be facilitating the breakout room. And today we're going to be going over transportation and mobile sources. So I believe that we have the links to the activity should be sent in the chat. And Laura should be beginning screen share. So whenever you're ready, Laura, if you can please go ahead and share your screen for the activity and we can go over the instructions.
Okay, let
All
me
right.
get this bigger for people. Is this a good size?
Is anyone having trouble viewing the screen? If you're having trouble viewing the screen, you can unmute yourself and let us know, or you can also leave a comment in the chat.
¿Dónde la puedo ver en español? Pero
Okay, I believe we're
Marina
having
is asking as
issues
to
with
where can
the
she see it in
interpretation.
Spanish?
Laura, would you be able to troubleshoot that problem? Or how can we go about resolving this?
Do we have anyone from the consulting side at MIG on? Because I have no idea how to do that.
Let me go ahead and find something for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nirvana, do we also have a link to Spanish version of this document, or were we just going to have the translator translate verbally?
I don't have access to the Spanish version. Laura, do you have access to that?
I'm not sure. Let me check online to see if we have that posted, if it got translated.
I believe all the translation, like the translated materials, was sent to Marina by Raven earlier in the week.
Ahorita lo voy a buscar.
Yes, they were.
Marina is saying she's going to look at it here in a minute.
Okay, just to clarify, does everybody have everything they need?
Yes, and we confirm that the interpreter is able to provide the interpretation for Marina.
Some of the community-based organizations.
Sí, sí, la escucho.
This is Gigi, the interpreter. Marina couldn't hear me.
Es que estoy buscando el documento en
I'm
español.
looking for the
A ver
document
si
in
lo puedo
Spanish.
sacar aquí, porque
See if
estoy
I
en
can
el
find it.
teléfono. Ujú.
Because I'm on my phone.
Raven, can you confirm that the interpretation services have been provided to Marina?
I can confirm that the interpretation has.
Okay, great. So we can go ahead and begin.
I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm gonna repost it in the chat.
Okay. The Spanish translation of the document is going to be posted in the chat, I believe. But it was sent over earlier in the week as well. I can also post Raven's email in the chat.
I thought I would just say I noticed when the breakout room started that my Zoom automatically took me out of the English interpretation channel. So just for everybody to check down in the bottom bar, maybe under the more buttons if your bars collapse a little bit, to make sure you're in the English or Spanish channel, because you might not hear the interpreter otherwise.
Thanks for that, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Okay, I think we're all ready to
Ya lo
begin. Is
tengo
that
aquí
correct?
el documento ya para leer.
Okay, I have the document here now. Thank you.
Are we ready, Sarah? Kim? Laura? Interpretation is good? Everyone has their necessary materials? Great. Okay, gonna go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for attending tonight. We are going to be reviewing some of the draft strategies for transportation and mobile sources. And we have identified through all the community concern statements these topics about which are basically strategies, like these topics that are based on the strategies that we have drafted on the community concern statement. So we have trucks in the community, we have the I-580 truck ban, we have freeway and high volume roadway traffic, and we have the airport. And underneath each of these different topics, we have the strategies. And throughout the activity, each of the different community concerns that are being addressed will have a brief description and then followed by the different strategies below. So as you can see here, for trucks in the community, for example, we have 4 strategies drafted here. And the first one being reduce incompatibility of trucking near neighborhoods through health protective policy and zoning, urban greening, and proactive enforcement. So each of these different strategies have a space for you to provide your comments. As you go through this document, please include your initials as you're leaving your comments in the comment section so that we can keep track of and keep record of your recommendations. And we're going to go ahead and move forward in this activity as a group, but if at any time you feel comfortable enough to just kind of review the material on your own and continue to work on the comments at your own pace, and you'd like to work separately, that's also feel free to do that as well. So for the beginning of the activity, we'd like to review one of the strategies as a group first. So based on the listed strategies that we have here, does anyone see one in particular that we'd like to maybe discuss as a group, provide comment on, and kind of review together? Okay, I see you have your hand raised, Gabrielle. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute.
I kind of just want some clarification on what reduce incompatibility of trucking near neighborhoods means. Because it sounds like implicit in this framing is that we want to keep trucking near neighborhoods but make it less incompatible. So I just want to get clarity on, is this strategy to reduce trucking near neighborhoods entirely, or just make it more compatible, whatever that means?
Thank you for your question. So if you scroll down to the strategy itself, there is the strategy objective that is going to be copied and also pasted into the chat for everyone to review in case anyone's having a hard time following along. But essentially, this particular strategy is the goal of the strategy is to make trucking near neighborhoods, particularly in areas that are being negatively impacted by trucking, more difficult. So this is going to be the process for this, or the next step in developing, to reaching the strategy towards implementation, is developing the different actions that are going to help achieve this goal. So the strategy objective kind of lays out those particular actions, which is included in this section, things like health policy, and also municipal code changes, essentially making it more difficult for these trucking industries to have a negative environmental impact in the community. So there's the different the actions, however, are still being drafted. We're just in the strategy development phase. So the actions are going to be part of the process for us reaching implementation. Does that answer your question or help provide a little bit more guidance on this process and also this particular activity that we're working on?
Yeah, so you said something along the lines of make it harder for trucks to drive through East Oakland, and that sounds great, and I'm glad to hear that, but I don't see that reflected in the language in the strategy objective. So it would be, I guess, as some feedback, make more explicit and clear that we're actually trying to reduce the number of trucks driving through our neighborhoods, basically.
Yeah.
If that is actually what we're trying to achieve, then that should be clear.
Yeah, that's really valuable feedback. And yeah, I encourage you to include that in the comment section. So if there's feedback, that could be provided to improve the quality of these strategies and the strategy objective, then the purpose of this activity is to include that in the comments because we're still in the drafting period. So this is a good opportunity for you to do that. So thank you. I also see Michaela has their hand raised. Gabrielle, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to make? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Michaela, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute.
For sure, thanks. Yeah, I was gonna kind of follow up to what Gabrielle was saying, but yeah, I think kind of strengthening this strategy so the action is kind of talking about, truck routes or truck traffic, the amount of trucks in East Oakland, kind of really diving into where trucks are going. And then I think I also wanted to point out that I know there's definitely some neighborhoods and streets that trucks aren't supposed to be on even now, and they'll still park there or idle there. So yeah, maybe adding something around trying to enforce better, which, yeah, I'm not sure what that would look like because I don't want it to look like more police or agency in East Oakland, but some kind of way to make sure trucks aren't in school zones or random neighborhoods when they're not supposed to be there anyways.
I see. So identifying those high trucking areas and also kind of assessing like the air pollutant impacts in those particular areas from pollution from those trucks. I see what you're saying. So essentially, also just to be clear, the strategies, as we kind of reviewed during the presentation, are a much more broader approach or method to achieving an objective. So they are going to be more broad, and then essentially, as we come up with the actions, they're going to provide more specific steps or tasks that are going to be undertaken. So, like example, like concrete actions that will help to achieve the outcomes of the strategy, and they will be more specific. So your feedback will help also inform like what the actions, as we're drafting the actions, what they could be and what they will be in the future. Great. See, Marina has their hand raised. Michaela, do you have any additional comments before I move on?
No, that was all. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, and also, Marina has their hand raised. So Marina, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Perdón, no lo podía quitar.
I'm sorry, I couldn't turn it on.
Si yo también quiero,
Yes,
¿verdad?
I would
Ser clara,
also like to be
¿verdad?
clear.
Estamos hablando
We're
que
talking
debemos de reducir nuestra
about
contaminación.
reducing our
Es una de las
pollution. It's
estrategias
one
que
of the
estamos viendo,
strategies
¿verdad?
that we're
En
looking at,
nuestro
right?
plan,
In our
¿sí?
plan.
Pero,
Yes.
¿cómo vamos
But
a
how are
asegurarlo
we
que en
going to
verdad se va a hacer,
make
¿verdad?
sure that this is really
Tenemos
going to happen?
muchos años
We have
trabajando
many years
en
working
esto y
on
no lo
this,
hemos podido lograr.
and we haven't
Entonces
managed to do anything.
yo
So
quisiera, ¿verdad?
I would like to
Quisiera que
I
se
would like
llevara a cabo, que se haga
I
como
would
dicen,
like this
¿verdad?
to
Que se
happen, like
planee
they say, that we
y que
plan
tome uno acción,
and
¿verdad?
that we take
Pero
action.
con qué
But
cronología se va a trabajar para
what's the
hacer este
timeline we're going to
proyecto,
work
porque
on to do this
debemos de
project?
tener eso en
Because we
cuenta.
should take that
Sí,
in
porque si no, no lo
consideration,
vamos a poder
right?
llevar
If
a
not,
cabo.
we're not going to
Necesitamos
be able to do
aparatos,
this.
necesitamos
We need
científicos
equipment, we need
algo
scientists,
que nos
somebody
vayan
to
identificando
something
esas
that
emisiones,
identifies
¿verdad?
these
Esos
emissions,
contaminantes que
these
están
pollutants
haciéndonos
that are
daños, ¿verdad?
harming us, right?
En el
That are
transporte,
harming us,
principalmente que yo vivo
especially with
aquí junto al
transportation.
880,
So I live here next to the
que
880.
no dejan de transitar
They
los
just
carros,
won't
¿verdad?
stop.
Y eso es mi
And
preocupación.
that's my
¿Cómo vamos
concern.
a
They
hacer
won't stop polluting. What are we going?
realidad
How are we going to
nuestros
make
sueños, verdad?
our
Porque
dreams come true?
podemos
Because
poner todos los días nuestro
we can
plan, nuestras
every day make a
estrategias,
plan,
¿verdad?
just sit down and write our
Pero no
strategies.
estamos
But
cumpliendo. Entonces
we're not
necesitamos como
doing
aclarar
anything,
más,
complying.
¿verdad?
We need to be clear.
Y están hablando también
And
que
we're
queremos
talking
limpio,
still
¿verdad?
about
Nuestro medio
we want
ambiente.
our environment clean.
Vamos a limpiar nuestros carros, ¿verdad?
Are we going to
Pero
clean out our
también yo tengo
cars?
dudas,
Yes, I would
¿verdad?
like to. I have questions about.
Queremos que los carros todos sean
We
cero
want the cars
emisiones.
to be zero
Para eso
emissions,
va a estar,
but
pues, me imagino
I don't
difícil,
know. It's going to
porque
be
nosotros
hard
siendo
because
clase pobre,
being
no vamos a
poor,
tener
we're not going to have
mucho dinero para
a
comprar un
lot of money
carro
to be
de
able to buy to
60 y
purchase a
tantos
car that's
miles de
I don't know,
pesos.
maybe 60,000
Que veo
pesos.
que el
And
medio
what
ambiente
I
está
can see
dándonos
is that the
1000, eso no nos
environment,
alcanza. Entonces,
I mean, they're giving us
yo quiero estar
12,000. That's
clara,
not
yo
enough.
sí
I want
quiero
to
limpiar
make it
mi
clear that if I
medio
want
ambiente,
my
pero sí
environment
necesitamos
to
mucho
be
money,
clean,
mucho
we need
dinero
a lot of money
para lograr
so
nuestras
we
metas.
can reach our
Gracias.
goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. And is the interpreter able to provide interpretation for the group? Or Sarah, please, I see you have your.
Yeah, I think you might not be in the English channel, Nirvana, because I'm hearing heard interpretation. So if everybody can make sure at the bottom on your Zoom, again, when the breakout room started, it kicked us all out of the interpretation channels, I think. So you have to reselect.
Okay.
And I think in the comments under strategy objective 1 in the table, Kim was, or no, Laura, somebody Nope, Kim, somebody's taking notes.
I think it was
Anyway,
Kim. I'm
so
not that
it
good
was
at Spanish,
so it was
unfortunately.
recapped. So yeah, if folks aren't hearing the English interpretation while Marina was speaking, you're not in the English channel. So just make sure you're selected.
Okay, I'm seeing that now. Yeah, so there is the option to listen in like the original audio, English or Spanish. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. In regards to the comments that were made based on the translation in the comments, yeah, this is really good feedback, and I think that this will really help inform like our future actions and strategies. And also, we're going to develop a prioritization list. So, all as we have discussed earlier in the presentation and in the meeting, there's quite a few number of strategies, but certain strategies will be prioritized during the first year of implementation and so on and so forth. So also identifying like which ones and are going to be that we will be focusing on for implementation will also be determinant on the feedback that we receive from the CSC and the community members. So this is also important for everyone to provide. Prioritized by who? I see that in the comment by Gabrielle. So essentially, we will identify the strategies that need to be prioritized. So the CSC will contribute to that. Like they will help, like the CSC and the community members who are participating in this process will help determine which strategies are being prioritized for year one implementation. All right. And I see a couple of hands raised. I believe I saw Kim's hand raised first. It's coming in order number one. Kim, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thanks, Nirvana, and hi all. My name is Kim Ryan. I'm a staff researcher at CBE, for anyone who I haven't met yet. I just also I was paraphrasing a little bit about what Marina had said through the translator, so I just wanted to fill in a couple other questions that I heard from Marina when she was sharing. And one thing that I think I wanted to clarify here is that there is definitely a part of the strategy development where we will review the strategies and the actions and estimate how much time is needed, how much money is needed, how feasible or practical or successful do we think the strategy will be? Are there existing funding sources? Would we need to get new funding sources? Is there like a lot of political push towards something that we could use to like gain energy to get a strategy going and implement it? So what we're looking at tonight is just like a first review at like some ideas, some objectives that are starting to come together based on all of the feedback that we've been gathering. But there will be so much more work in order to really be able to develop strong, measurable strategies that have set timelines, set goals, hopefully set funding, or at least an idea of where that funding is going to come from. So I just wanted to add that to Marina's comment.
Thank you, Kim, for being able to answer that and provide a little bit more translation as I had that off. I also see that Gabrielle had their hand raised. If I see that you also did lower your hand, but if you did have a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
I put it in the chat. I think my question is answered in the chat. It just I had the answer was kind of non-committal. The CSC will have some input in that decision. It doesn't sound like we actually are anything more than just like an advisory body, and I'm trying to get some clarity on who actually makes these decisions. And I would like some clear, concise answers on that. Just in general, because
Yeah. So based on, I appreciate your question. So as Laura said, for Path to Clean Air, which is the Richmond San Pablo Community Steering Committee, they were able to vote and on the strategies that are going to be prioritized for year one implementation. So
can we
so
take
the
that?
process is,
Sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. Could you repeat yourself?
Um, yeah, so my question is, in this process, who has final decision making, who makes the decisions? And so far, the answers I've gotten are, well, Richmond did it this way, um, uh, and you will have some input on the decision, but nobody has come out and said, this body is going to make this decision. And I would like to know if this body is going to make that decision or not.
Yeah, so this is as I can, if I could provide a little bit more insight or answer your question, this is like a collaborative effort. So if we are helping with drafting the strategies, the community steering committee is helping advise on the strategies and whether or not they need to be changed or what edits need to be made. And also like assessing, like we're responsible for assessing the feasibility and determining whether or not like what is in like the realm of things that we can do for to make what kind of actions we can draft and what kind of strategies we can develop. But ultimately, it is being voted on by the CSC and the community members who are part of the process. Laura, you can go ahead and unmute yourself whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'll just chime in and say those are really great questions, Gabrielle. And I think those are things that the CSC can discuss later down the line when we get closer to that, because you'll definitely want to be having those discussions and talking with staff and CBE about that. For now, for the sake of time, I would suggest we try to get to some more of these strategy objectives for this activity today. But yes, those are definitely things to be thinking about.
The reason why it might seem like this is not a straight answer is because it hasn't been decided on how that process is going to look like by the CSC. So it hasn't been, we haven't determined how this is going to be, which strategies are going to be a priority for like year one implementation. Like it hasn't been just like how that process is going to look like hasn't been decided yet. But once that process has been decided, then there will be more information on what that process will look like, but there hasn't been a determination. And then, like Laura mentioned, if we can continue on with the activity just for the interest of time. Also, as I mentioned before, if you aren't following along with the group and you're providing your comments as as you see fit and reviewing the document on your own, please feel free to do that. But if we want to continue working as a group, maybe we can move on to the next strategy. And if there's one in particular that anybody on call would like to focus on, then we can move on to that section.
Whoever's sharing, would you mind going back to the top to see the strategy options? Thank you. If I was gonna say if someone else has their hand up, but I was gonna say maybe talking about the airport expansion, number 10, that feels really pressing. I just went to a Port of Oakland meeting and they were talking about it actually. But if other folks want to chime in, I'm happy to talk about something else also.
All right, for those of you who are following along, would we like to have a discussion or kind of share your comments on this strategy and strategy objective? This is halt Oakland Airport expansion until further technical analysis about community health and quality of life impacts are completed. For the objective, we have the potential impacts of the proposed airport expansion are fully studied, including a comprehensive analysis of the public health impacts of the project, as well as impacts from indirect sources, increases both at the airport and in warehouses from increased cargo. All possible mitigation measures are explored to minimize potential project impacts. The port conducts a transparent process and provides meaningful opportunities for community input. Anyone would like to share some of their comments? Also, just a reminder, please leave your initials in the comments. All right. I see, Gabrielle, you have your hand raised. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute.
Michaela, do you want to go first since you were the one who picked this topic?
No, go for it, Gabrielle.
Oh, okay. I would just add that so I would add something about when the port conducts a transparent process, I want to, if we can make it clear that that they should be collaborating with local um agencies like the public, I believe it's the public health department. Like there are local entities that have been trying to have some input in this process and have not been able to. So making it clear that not just community input, but also input from local regulators, experts, public health experts, especially. I think it's really important that public health experts are like collaborators on this new assessment.
Great. Thank you for your feedback, Gabrielle. Do you have any additional comments you'd like to make before we move on to the next? Great. Michaela, whenever you're ready, please go ahead and unmute.
For sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, I think I fully support this strategy, and it would be interesting to see what the action components look like. It feels like the airport expansion is really rushed and there's definitely not enough information about it. Yeah, I went to like a Port of Oakland Board Commission meeting earlier today, and a lot of people from the Oakland Airport Expansion Coalition, were talking about a lot of the different impacts it has on specifically East Oakland, and then also just Oakland and like the kind of wider East Bay. But yeah, I mean, I think also, I don't know if this is used in agency like analyses, but trying to look at like the cumulative impacts of the airport expansion, the additional gates, the additional flights, and what that would actually look like for like the East Oakland community where the flight paths are concentrated. Um, and then I think I would go the next step in asking the Port of Oakland to advocate to the FAA, which I think are the people who decide on the flight paths, to look at it from like more of an equity or justice lens also, and not being trying to increase the number of flights. So yeah, that was kind of like my comment.
Great. Thank you so much, Michaela. And feel free to also edit your comments. I know that the notes are being taken by Laura and Kim. Thank you so much for doing that, but feel free to edit your comments in the sections where you see fit as well. Not sure if you have like a physical hand raise, or if you have like, if you'd like to continue, if you have something to say, Gabrielle.
Yo sí quiero opinar.
Marina is saying she wants to provide suggestions.
Okay, great. Gabrielle, that wasn't a hand raised, if I'm correct.
Okay, yo también quiero pues mencionar algo
I
sobre
would like to mention something
expansión del aeropuerto.
about our airport
Quisiera saber
expansion. I
qué
would like
agencia
to
se va a hacer
know
cargo de
which is the agency that
estar
is leading
monitoreando, ¿verdad?
or that's monitoring
Que siga sus reglas, ¿verdad? Que
so that
sigan los
rules
códigos
are followed, that
de no
codes are
contaminación
followed,
o
the anti-pollution
tener
rules,
como
or to
unas gráficas
have
donde nos muestren, ¿verdad?
some
Lo que está
graphics
pasando ahorita
to show us
y
what
lo
is
que va a
happening
pasar
right
cuando
now,
estén
or
funcionando
what
todos
is
estos
going to
más
happen
aviones,
when
porque sabemos que
possibly
entre más
more
aviones haya, más contaminación vamos a
airplanes
tener
there
y
are
más
going to be.
ruido, ¿sí?
We
Yo vivo
know that there will
cerca,
be more
eso es un ruido muy
noise
feo.
and more
Entonces,
pollution. I live very close to the
también
airport, and
debemos
it's
darle,
the noise is really
debemos
bad.
de dejarle
And we
a saber
should
a nuestra comunidad
also
si está de
let
acuerdo, porque
the
muchas veces
community know
ellos toman
whether they
decisiones
agree, because
sin que
sometimes
la comunidad diga nada.
decisions are made
Entonces yo quisiera, ¿verdad?
without the community being allowed to provide feedback, I'd like to know who is leading or directing so that we can go to that agency or to whoever is leading this expansion effort so that we want to ensure that they are following the rules.
Thank you, Marina, for your feedback and for your comments. Yes, and yes, we will be following up with the team on, or we will be following up with everybody in regards to like the processes that were that are up along the lines of what you're describing as emissions inventories, which we have like several divisions in like in the air district that go through that process and that contribute to that process. I know, Sarah, you have your hand raised if you have like more pointed answer. I know, Gabrielle, you do have your hand raised as well and you have a comment to be made. But if Sarah, if you have an answer to the question that you'd like to share quickly, then I'd like to give you the opportunity to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll try to be brief. I will put some links in the chat, but I think Carly also sent out via email, I think, to the whole CSC. And we now have Spanish translation of documents as well. CBE and one of the labor unions that represents airport workers put together a report talking a little bit more about what some of the impacts of operations both now and with a potential expansion at Oak would be. So that might have some more information about like the scale of emissions and more information about what those health impacts are. In terms of the decision makers, the Port of Oakland owns and operates the airport. So they are the lead agency that is putting out the proposed expansion. Airports are very complicated legally in terms of who regulates what, which of course makes it kind of messy and easy to get lost in terms of who's controlling what. So the federal government, as I think Michaela was saying, sets the standards for like what airplanes themselves are allowed to emit. So like what kind of jet fuel they use and like the emission standards around that. So that's the federal government. The state can set certain regulations on to try to incentivize like what types of fuels are used, but they can't like dictate because that's the federal government just in terms of aviation fuel. And then there's a whole lot of other equipment that exists at the airport that have different types of emissions. Some of those standards are set also by the state and licensed by the state. And then, of course, the Air District BACMED permits stationary sources, so things like boilers to heat the buildings, backup generators. But in terms of like the proposal for the project, it's the Port of Oakland that is the lead agency on that. And CBE is definitely ramping up just to help folks in terms of the time frame. I mean, lots of work can be done outside of sort of the legal process that's going on, but there is expected to be a final environmental impact report coming out later this month, and we can definitely forward that along, and as well as like try to summarize some of the important things when that comes out.
Thank you, Sarah. I hope that that provides a little bit more insight and more description into the airport and the processes that are associated with that. And then the links are also going to be posted in the chat for Marina's review, and for those who would like access to the English or Spanish version. Gabrielle, thank you for waiting. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
So this is a little pie in the sky, but just thinking about strategies to address the airport expansion. Is there any room or any like point in putting something like a strategic goal of like creating alternatives to airports for domestic long distance travel? Like, do we want to write a strategy that would encourage Oakland to pursue funding for rail improvements or connecting to high-speed rail projects or something like that? Just as kind of like a big long-term thing, because I think in the long run, that's what's actually gonna stop airports from existing, you know?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's a very valuable perspective, and I think that that is really valuable feedback. And yeah, like there are a lot of other transportation investments that are being made like across like the Bay Area region, and we have like the upcoming like Link 21 project, which is supposed to connect the greater 21 county Bay Area region. And then in addition to that, we have high-speed rail. So the transit need is definitely growing. And this is outside from just like commuter transit needs, but also like local transit needs as alternatives to driving. And I think that that is a very important perspective. So that is something that we can also explore as we are in the process of drafting these strategies. I know that in the interest of time, like I mentioned, I hope you were all able to take a look at these. And I appreciate you all for following along in the discussion that we've been having. But we do have quite a few different strategies, and I encourage you all to continue to include your comments beyond this meeting as well. However, I would like to fit in maybe one more strategy that we can all review and discuss as a group for those of you who are following along in the group. Laura, whenever you're ready, if you want to go ahead and scroll back up to the top so we can see the different topics and strategies that we have included in this activity. I would also like to mention that if you have any like pointed questions, if you would like to keep record of that in the chat, and if you'd like to also follow up with myself, Laura, Sarah, who is on the legal team for CBE, Kim Ryan as well, and you'd like more clarity, or if you'd like certain materials that we've mentioned sent over to you, or if you'd like access to anything that we've discussed today, to please reach out to us, and we'll be able to provide you with the best answers that we can and the necessary materials for your reference. Just wanted to also point that out and make sure that everyone has opportunity to ask away whatever it is that they need. All right, so does anyone have a particular strategy that they'd like to also discuss before we, as a kind of like wrap up, since we have just a few more minutes left?
Sí, yo, Marina.
Yes, me, Marina. I want to say something.
All right, please, after you.
Sí, solo
Yes.
quiero comentar así de rápido, ¿verdad?
I want to briefly comment
Que necesitamos saber, ¿verdad?
that we need to
¿Cómo
know
están los empleados de la, verdad? Ahí en la estrategia 8 parece que dice que
I
sobre la
think it was
salud,
strategy
que es
8
muy
for
importante, ¿verdad?
employees that
Para los
the
empleados hay
workers'
que ver cómo
health,
está su
the
salud
workers' health is very
trabajando
important.
en
That we
esa
should
área del
check
aeropuerto, ¿verdad?
how their health
Si haya
is
alguna
when they work
estadística donde nos
in the
diga
certain area of the
sobre su
airport. Are there
salud
statistics
y
that
cuántas personas están
have
enfermas
information about their health, or maybe
sobre esa
illnesses that
contaminación.
the
Sí podemos
workers
obtener
have had due to
información.
pollution? Is such information available for us?
Thank you for your question, Marina. So this is a really good point, and I think that in regards to collecting data on particular health impacts that are being caused at like the workers, for example, it's important to like identify like what specific health problems can arise from exposure to working in these types of industries, and then also being able to excuse me. Yes, and then also being able to like identify like where those workers are living, and being able to kind of report on that type of information and data. A lot of that comes from, there's a lot of census data available. There's also a lot of information from the Department of Public Health. And I think this also kind of bleeds in a little bit to what you were saying, Gabrielle, about having a kind of like a more like localized perspective and having like local experts being able to discuss and kind of support us in this process as well. People who have that experience and that localized knowledge on exactly like the population of workers and where they're living and what the particular health impacts these industries are having on them. So that's something that can be explored, and that's data that could be, useful in identifying like these issues. So yes, I agree, and that's something that we can also include in terms of in the future when we're drafting these actions, really being able to provide that assessment on determining the impact of these industries on workers' health. So yeah, I appreciate that feedback, and we can definitely incorporate that in the future when we're working on developing these actions. All right, just so everyone knows, we are reporting back in 5 minutes. See, Kim, you have your hand raised, so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thanks, Nirvana. Also, just thinking about Marina's question about workers' health, I'm wondering, Sarah, if the SEIU report that was referenced a lot in the CBE report that you linked, if that has any information that would be helpful just to share out, or anything that comes to mind about like worker health and the air pollution impacts based on where they're working and where they're living.
Yeah, so I would say there's a lot of like scientific studies that have been done to look at what kind of emissions are caused by airport operations and how different groups experience those. So in the summarized and the report links that I shared and that Carly had shared, there's some information about that. There's a longer version that I'm not sure that is translated, that just the labor union had written as well, that goes through like a ton more scientific studies. But yeah, so I mean, I think the most important thing to know is just that the emissions are obviously most concentrated right where the operations are. So workers breathe those in the most directly. There's one study finding that always sticks out in my mind from an airport in Europe. I think it's out of Copenhagen, but that found that workers on the tarmac who are working right next to the planes in some places experienced particulate matter concentrations that were equivalent to what like an indoor smoking room would be like at an airport back. I don't know if they allow those in Europe still, but back when you had like smoking rooms at airports. So we know it's really severe. I will say I don't think there are not any like local to Oakland studies that I'm aware of. So I can't say that there are any numbers right now of like Oakland specific workers, how many people have certain health conditions that we know of right now. But that's part of what we're really interested in, is encouraging more study and more reporting on it. But yeah, if there's more specific questions, and if anybody has questions about reports or airports or anything, like I'm always here, and I can drop my email in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'd also like to
Simon
add
says
that
she's got 2 minutes before we report back.
Great. Thanks, Dale. Yeah, I also like to add in regards to just like the existing data, as we know, like Cal and Screen is like a really popular tool to be able to like identify like the different pollutants that exist in different neighborhoods, but also the different health impacts. And I think the issue that we have kind of seen is that if we're talking about, let's say, asthma by prevalence, for example, some of the data that we have available, or like the most common data that we have available on like those different health impacts, are at the zip code level. So in an area like East Oakland, it will embody like not the particular census tracts of East Oakland, but like it will also be greater than that, like into the hills. So it doesn't actually tell like the full specific the full story of the specific neighborhood. So there's like that gap as well in like the literature and the data that like could also be addressed. All right. Well, we have about less than 1 minute left. Thank you all for your participation tonight. There will be a follow-up email with more instructions on how we can continue to gather your comments. You do have access to this link, so please feel free to continue providing your comments, reviewing these strategies. And I believe that once we are done with this activity, we'll be
¿Puedo dar
going
un
back into
comentario rápido nomás?
I have a quick
Porque no lo
comment
pude mandar en el chat.
because
Oh, I'm
I couldn't
sorry.
send it in the chat.
All the breakout rooms are closing in a few seconds.
Oh.
So not sure if we
La
have enough
estrategia
time.
7 es algo importante
It's
porque
strategy
está el
7 is very
nitrógeno y la
important
partícula
because the
PM.
nitrogen and the PM particles.
Yes, and I encourage everybody to continue providing their comments. So just because we didn't discuss a certain strategy tonight as we were going over this activity as a group, you are all encouraged to continue providing your comments and your feedback in the document that's been shared with you. So please review all the strategies and provide as many comments as you can as part of this activity. And yes, so thank you everyone again for joining. And we'll be closing out, and I believe they'll be ending their activity in person, and we'll be everyone from the built environment will also be joining this room shortly. So thank you all.
Anybody else had anything for anybody? Everybody?
Hi, all. I had a question for the interpreter. I wanted to send a message, a direct message to Marina with a follow-up question about her comment. Who should I send that to in the chat so that it is properly translated?
I think
You could probably put it in the chat.
mind putting it in the main room chat, Kim, and then we can ask that they either type a translated response or verbally provide it to Marina. Does that work?
Okay, you cut out that first bit. You said put it in the main chat.
Yeah, and then Maria and Gigi, would you two be willing to help interpret that message to Marina? Or I can't see. There's Gigi.
Yes, I can definitely interpret it for Marina.
Thank you so much.
Did y'all have
Okay, who's kicking off the report backs?
Okay, I was just waiting to hear if everything was settled online. Cool.
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
all.
Thanks, Carly.
Okay, great. So welcome back in, everyone. Hope you all had a good discussion in your rooms. So first, maybe I'll start out with this room with transportation and mobile sources. Who's giving the report back here? Ayana, go ahead.
Okay, let me see. Give me a second. Okay, so our main takeaways, for transportation and mobile sources. We did trust in the community. So we had, different strategies, things what we wanted to include were, some of the things, I'll just give our main things. We should implement a system like Ivan used in San Francisco. We have, for reduce incompatibility of trucking their neighborhoods through health protection policy and zoning, urban greening, and proactive enforcement. We have some other ideas, so, if we had an opportunity to pressure regulatory agencies to achieve objectives. A lot of the community does not know about resources and community groups that are already present. Community should speak up to agency about, issues. Education and awareness was a big part of this and should be built into this. And then, putting some more, we should be better to educate the youth on these issues and they can educate us. So that was one of our components.
That's great. Yeah, that's good, Ayana. Thank you so much. Did the transportation and mobile sources from the virtual room want
Sí,
to
si
share?
quiere escríbalo. Ok. La estrategia 7, ¿verdad? La preocupación es del dióxido nitrógeno. Y se escribe una N, una O y una S.
Sorry, is
Es
Marta
la-
giving the report back?
Ay,
Yes, she is.
Okay.
We're not getting the ink.
Sorry, we didn't get any of that.
I was typing it up for her, but I can say she's talking about strategy 7 and concern on NOS, nitrogen oxide.
Uh-huh. Nitrous oxide? Uh-huh.
no, porque me
Yes.
está escuchando, Carlos.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
was
I
that
think
it?
that was
Oh.
the response to the question in the chat from Kim.
Sí.
Yeah, but just to do our report back really quick, we talked a lot about truck traffic and kind of what that policy meant, making sure it talked about enforcement, but then also not just like rerouting truck routes, but then having different alternatives. And then we talked about the Oakland airport expansion and wanting to halt that and do more research and think about that from like an equity and justice lens and think about advocacy efforts. So yeah, some other things, but I'll save it due to time.
Great. Thanks, Michaela. Virtual room, built environment, and land use. You wanted to share?
Hi, yeah, we talked about, we got through 5 different subjects. We talked about eliminating indoor air pollution and creating clear metrics for that with tools that are available for everybody, having safe temperatures in the home. And we also talked about who's going to hold the landlords accountable and partnering with the City of Oakland Planning Department, making sure that renters don't get any retaliation for bringing up their concerns, but just making a clear process for everybody to follow. We talked about zero emission homes for health and equity, having maybe a safe percentage that is comparable to the rest of the city and other healthy cities, having affordable programs, having a list of vendors that sort of know our best practices and are aligned with the objective, and partnering with possibly trade schools. And again, we had some conversation about who's going to pay for these resources. We talked about cooling centers and also having more kits available that can be actually delivered to people's homes in the event of an emergency. And then maybe having some limits and boundaries for the cooling centers. We talked about the infrastructures and maybe partnering with other partnering with other organizations. And then also we talked about learning some best practices from existing homeless shelters that already manage large gatherings of people in emergency situations. We talked about the community education and making sure that it's accessible to everybody. We talked about the materials being at a 6th grade reading level. And then we talked about maybe funding for communities that are already doing some outreach. And I only wrote down La Clinica, but there was another one too that was mentioned. We talked about identifying the key community members in neighborhoods so that in addition to just getting information, that there's actually somebody in the neighborhood that can talk to people about what they're receiving.
Yeah.
And we talked about protecting schools, and we talked about maybe changing some of the language, like sensitive receptors, just to make sure that it's community oriented.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Andrea. Real quick, did we have someone from the built environment and land use in-person room wants to give a quick report back?
after that, eloquent, takeaway, we only talked about one thing: workforce development being included in every aspect of, our operation. That should be one of the main objectives because, East Oakland is under the median income. And that when we talking about, our community members, they are in constant survival mode. So while we're talking about these, programs that we want to implement, we want to be able to go after grants that will allow community members to actually get paid to do this work while we're also writing this plan. And so our thing was purely about how could we, get, community members trained, taught, educated, and paid to do the work that we're talking about. Air infiltration systems, we can teach our own people how to put those in, and why should we have to outsource it when we can hire our own community members to do this work? And we have to think more about grassroots community members being, being employed to do to actually implement the changes that we're talking about. And if anybody else want to add anything.
Great.
Okay,
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Charles. Thanks, everyone. So now I think we're gonna, I'll pass it to Mr. Charles and Alicia.
Yes.
So, we've been, having discussions about how can we have community members more engaged in, CSC activities outside of, our CSC meeting. And one of the thoughts that we came up with is to have, we haven't named it yet, but we want to have a meeting in between meetings to allow CSC members to, voice their thoughts, their feelings, or whatever it is that they think might be missing in between meetings. And so, you want to tell them what those are?
Yeah, I would add that, kind of thinking about, specific, yes, we want to open it, more open-ended, but also talking about, continuing the conversation. Sounds like we didn't get to all of the objectives, and we want to make sure that if people are interested in talking about them and, brainstorming more, that we have time to do that outside of the CSC meeting, because we have, next month, the idea is that we would come with new strategies for potentially, we would be building by next month, the actions for some preliminary actions, some research about actions for transportation and built environment. Okay, so we want to make sure that you all feel like there's enough time to also talk about everything else that we didn't get to today. And I would just, say that in order to do that, there's some ideas about, committees or work sessions in between CSC meetings, as Mr. Charles was saying.
Yeah, and we're hoping that, for those who feel like, it's a whole lot of information all at once, that, and sometimes you might be feeling overwhelmed, that this will give you an opportunity to, just relax and add your thoughts later on in the week instead of being overwhelmed in the first part of it. And so I think that's, hopefully, and we're also asking for CSC members to give your, thoughts and ideas about how you would like to see, hour or so, extra opportunity to be able to relate to each other. How would y'all like that to, happen?
Do y'all feel comfortable with that? Is that something that you guys feel that would be helpful? Any member can talk.
I do. This is Andrea. I think it'll be super helpful. I like that we're going to have set office hours and a time that, in between the meetings where we know we can connect.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to learn more about the work sessions. Those sound really interesting, good stuff.
Anybody else?
I see Cynthia.
Yeah, thank you for these offerings. I really appreciate you all. I know how much effort you're trying to make to give us an opportunity to be involved. My request is my schedule is super impacted and I can't just Personally, if someone just calls me, I can't just pick up the phone and drop what I'm doing. So as much structure and maybe even getting a doodle poll of like, what days would you be available? Because I personally find it challenging when like someone just calls me or texts me and they don't consider that I work full time. I'm a parent, like I'm on other boards. So just really be mindful of like our scheduling, and not just like set up times and tell us to show up.
What if we had consistent time, like a specific time and day of the week?
Hey, folks, I'm just going to
Helpful?
chime in here. Do you think we could wrap up in a minute or two to make sure we're on schedule for our break? Want to make sure folks get that before we keep going.
Okay. We can follow them, after you.
Say just a quick thing on this topic, just a quick thing, is that like me personally, I also don't know if I have that much capacity to like really dive deep into this stuff. But I also think it's not something that like everybody has to participate in, but I also think that we have resources outside of our committee. We're able to maybe get that authentic community feedback and input on some of these things. And like, again, like looking back at the folks who participated in the mapping exercises last year, you know, folks who are engaged with CBE, like there might be other kind of pockets of folks who might have more availability and just interest in kind of contributing to their own, you know, capacity. If we engage them and include them in prioritizing.
All right, so it looks like we're going to break. Is that right, Tom?
Evan did present, if you guys wanted to break or not. If you guys wanted to keep on going, or want to break.
We're a little bit behind, and so.
You
Yeah, are you guys okay with?
Oh, yeah, we can bypass the break.
Are you guys okay with taking a break?
Yeah, we can bypass
Are
it.
are folks online okay with not having a break? This just will help ensure we can get more voices here and get through our agenda. And thanks. Andrea's got a thumbs up. Jerry says okay. Michaela thumbs up. So okay. Sorry, Gabrielle. But if you need to step away to do a bio break, please feel free.
All right. Well, I'll be you know, presenting this section, which is an introduction and vote from the CSC for a charter amendment defining youth. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. So just for context, you know, we're leaving some of the original language of the charter on here so that people can view it. The next slide will have the revised language of the charter. But for this section, it reads Section 1 of the Charter Roles and Responsibilities, subsection C, steering committee members, which is on page 4. Quote, number of CSC members 19 to 26, 21 voting and 5 non-voting, and the following seats in order of size of group: 10 East Oakland residents, housed and unhoused, 4 local community-based organization representatives, 4 youth representatives aged 24 years or younger. The next slide, please. So the next slide, this slide goes through the revised charter language that we are proposing for a charter amendment to this section, which would be, you know, bump the 10 to the 9 East Oakland residents, but all CSC members are East Oakland residents, at least the voting members, and it would bump the 4 youth representatives up to 5. So then the rest of the language here in red, that would also be the revised part, age 24 years or younger when selected as a youth steering committee member, because we do have youth who are, you know, are either turning 25, you know, so we would like to hold a vote on this if people agree to this charter amendment change. You could go to the next slide, please. So the purpose of the charter amendment is responding to CSC youth interest in East Oakland, AB 617 CSC and CERT process, and ensuring continued leadership from youth co-chair Michaela Patton through the remainder of the CERT development process and timeframe of the current charter. I see there's a question from Gabrielle.
So my question is that the numbers don't add up to 21 voting members, and I'm wondering if those numbers are minimums or maximums, or if you could clarify that.
Yeah, can we go back to the charter link?
And so I don't think everyone can see the slides, unfortunately. Cynthia's having a little trouble online. Could we?
This is not the complete, this is not the complete list of the seat breakdown.
Right.
We just included the areas where there's changes, but the bullet for 4 local community-based organizations is still up there. It's probably confusing to have that up there. But yeah, the only change, the bullets, not all of the bullets that break down the number of seats is on this slide.
Yeah, because we're still missing the non-voting members on this slide.
Yeah, and faith-based and business
Well,
representatives. And
sorry, just to clarify, you said non-voting members, but literally, according to this, 21 voting members, right? Not
Oh,
so.
right. Yes.
So there are voting members unaccounted for on this breakdown here.
yes, but they're not impacted by this change.
Okay.
Yes.
It would still be helpful to have that information.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry about that.
I will make sure to follow up with that information for you guys.
It's yeah, we'll send an email out with a post pending the outcome of the vote. We will send a email with an update on the charter.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Real quick.
Hold on. I just want to deal with a technical issue. Cynthia, can you now see the slides? Erica is screen sharing. Can you see the slides?
Let me check. Yes, I can see them now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, I don't know who was talking in the in-person space. And there's an online hand raise, Carly, just so you know, Jamie's got hand raised.
Okay, maybe we'll take Shamar's question.
You want to take Jamie?
Okay, Jamie?
Sorry, this might be a little off topic or nitpicky, but we specify housed and unhoused. And is this something that we're tracking folks' housing status, or because it feels a little like it might be performative if we don't actually know people's housing status and if we don't actually have representation from unhoused neighbors?
And that gets to my question, which was that this is all, this sounds great, doesn't seem very major at all, but like we've been asking for a long time for like a roster of who's actually on the committee. Don't necessarily need conflict information or anything private, but like it'd be very helpful to know from the beginning to today who's supposed to be here and what they're supposed to represent.
The roster, we did share a roster quite a while ago last year.
I remember when it was promised, and I followed up with you, but I don't remember ever actually.
We sent one out, but I can send it again to you.
That'd be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to Jamie's question, Nisha, I don't know that we know that answer off the top of our heads right now, but we could look into that.
It should be on the roster.
Jamie, yeah, thank you for your question. All right.
Okay, so I'm now gonna pass it to some youth who are gonna give some supporting statements to this amendment. So first I'll pass it to Andrea.
Thanks, Carly. Hi everyone, Andrea. I support approving this amendment because it would take more time and effort for us to recruit new youth to the CSC and to catch them up on all the work we've been doing. Michaela is, I consider her youth. She has the perspective of youth, so I think we should amend this. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrea. I'll pass it to Erica Pascual.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I also agree. I think that Michaela has done a great job so far, and she also really stands up to what youth believe, and so I think it would just be best to be able to keep her in the CSC.
Great, thanks, Erica. I'll pass it to Katie.
Hi, yes, this is Katie, and I just want to echo what Erica and Andrea have already said. Michaela is a great co-chair, and she's especially a great role model to me as a high schooler, just seeing all the things that she's doing. So I would love for her to stay as a part of CSC and as a youth member because she still has like the perspective. And I also agree that onboarding would take a bit of time too.
That's really sweet. I'll pass it to Becca now.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, just wanted to plus one to what everyone already said. Also, Michaela, besides Michaela, me too, I'm also just turned 25. I also do see Michaela as a really good role model. Even though we're the same age, I think she brings a lot of good leadership and like perspective. I think I do as well too. Let me know if I don't, but usually people agree when I do bring up comments. And this experience has been really nice. And I feel very much closer to the community. So yeah, I would love to stay on to this role if you guys are okay with it. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Becca. And real quick, I'll pass it to Michaela to finish us out here.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. Thanks for all the comments. I was gonna echo what Becca was saying in that, yeah, not just me, but I know it applies to a couple other of the youth CSC members. We're all kind of turning 25 in the next couple of months. But yeah, for me personally, I'm super excited to hopefully continue this process out and stay on as like the youth co-chair. So yeah, hopefully the charter amendment goes through. And yeah, we're almost at the finish line. So it'll be great to get it done with, I think, the folks we have for all the reasons mentioned.
Thanks, Michaela.
And I think, yeah, I think I'm just calling the vote. But yeah, I'm passing it to Raven to pretty much call the vote if anyone objects, but Raven's going to be leading that.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, there are 20 voting CSE members and 4 non-voting CSE members present. Can voting CSE members please raise their hand if you object to the charter amendment?
Can I make maybe a motion for what is it, amendment?
That's what you just did.
Yeah.
Just to go with this, would it be appropriate to add some language about CSC members receiving a constantly updated roster of members by name with their affiliation, and if possible, backdating and tying that to our attendance for the minutes on all the meetings, so we actually know what the composition has been, who's been present, and how it's changed over the 2 years?
I missed the first part of the question.
Well, the first part's just getting a roster. Because I've looked up, I have the emails. Yeah, what
I'll send it to you right now.
Very good, thank you. I can't find where it was previously sent, but it would be great for it to be kind of constantly updated, kind of a thing. I don't know if that can be part of this. Just disclosure.
Yeah, we have been tracking attendance. Is that the other part of your question too?
Yeah, no, I mean, I know it's on the minutes for previous meetings. We don't actually see who's voting member, who's non-voting, resident, nonprofit, unhoused, all those things. The specifics would be helpful so we know whether or not people are actually in the room.
We can keep up with the facts on paper.
Yeah, we can share. Sorry, this is Anna. And I think Anisha's answering online, in person, sorry, but we can share that. I'm seeing some support in the chat too for some of the roster. And I'll just say we don't necessarily need to include it in the charter to share that with you all. We can commit to providing that information to you all as a follow-up from this meeting. Thank you for raising that gap.
Cecilia.
I have a question to ask. Do y'all follow the Robert Rules of Order? You don't follow the Robert Rules of Order?
Yes.
We're following the process in the charter that you all approved a while back. It's so that's the process we're following. Is that Miss Cecilia?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, hello.
Because I'm serious what I'm saying. To me, it's very important to follow the Robert Rules of Order when you're doing any type of voting. That's in most organizations. That's what I'm saying. I was wondering what you all were doing, because normally there's always a motion made, it's second, and then it's questions,
after the questions, then you have the votes. That's why I was trying to figure out what you all were doing.
Yeah, thank you for asking for point of order.
Yes.
Should we call the question and again, Carly?
Yeah.
Sure. So can I do it again? Okay. Okay, so at this time, there are 20 voting CSE members, and for non-voting CSE members present, can voting members of the CSC raise their hand only if you object to this charter amendment on youth definition? Please raise your hand if you object in the chat, or if you're virtual, there should be like a hand that you can raise. If you could just keep that raised so I can count. All right, so seeing no objections, vote passes with a unanimous support.
Yep.
And then next slide.
Next slide. Hello, everyone.
Well,
As
Mr.
you
Charles,
know,
we're just thank you all for getting that vote done. Mr. Charles, I'm just going to remind you, we got about 5 minutes remaining, and we still want to do a very quick announcement section, Q&A and close out. So if we could keep this brief and bright, that'd be perfect.
and keep it as brief and bright as that little baby. Hey, everybody. This is our second annual Community Environmental Awareness and Empowerment Block Party. At this event, we want to celebrate some of the community members that have been doing this work for years and haven't been acknowledged. So we are going to be awarding some community members Oakland Lifers Awards for the work they've done for our community. We're going to be doing a tree planting at Bill's Argent Materials. And we will be painting a mural on the wall of Pick and Pull that is presently covered with graffiti. We also want to recognize our Black Cowboys for their 50 years of service to the community. And so we're looking forward to all of you participating and being a participant in this for that whole day full of music, fun. And we also want to recognize Mr. Fab for his stud therapy and really bringing it to the forefront that Black men, it's okay, man, to have issues and to talk to each other about it. And so we want to make this a community celebration. And really, we want this to be about you guys. And so please show up and have a good time with us, because this is going to be something that you'll remember. And you can bring your kids and they'll be safe, and we can talk about haircuts and everything. And anything you want to say, Bill? Bill just here, y'all. So any questions, I'll be happy to answer, and we will be shooting out flyers to everybody.
Mr. Charles, thank you very much for that. Please do follow up with folks in the chat and asynchronously for those details. And Michaela and crew, if you could bring us on home for closeout, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think we're doing Q&A, but I think as always, folks can definitely follow up. So yeah, as always, make sure to fill out the post-meeting survey. I think the biggest thing that came out of this meeting, like we heard, there's going to be ways to kind of get involved and leave comments afterwards. Sounds like there might be some follow-up around dates, but CBE and the Air District are working to draft the strategy actions, and CSC members can continue to give input on the Google Doc that we use today. Make sure to put your initials, and then also in these office hour sessions, phone calls, texts, emails, lots of other ways. Other than that, yeah, next meeting, we're going to keep talking about these strategies so we can kind of get into actions like we saw with Richmond and West Oakland. And our next meeting is going to be on November 14th. So yeah, we'll see y'all there. Make sure to fill out the survey so we can use your feedback to always make these meetings better. And yeah, happy spooky season, everybody.
You know, you happy Halloween. Yes, we do. We have a visiting people.
Looks like thanks, y'all.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Have a good night.
Hey, let us see you at the lobbying
Thank you.
training. Don't forget about the lobbying training Saturday. Please register.
And we'll see you on the 19th if you can.
Dígale a Charlie que si me puede mandar